Okay, so in these next couple lectures, I want to talk about Marquis' argument against abortion. Marquis thinks that abortion is seriously immoral. He doesn't quite say this, but I think, it's a pretty natural outgrowth of his position. If you think that he's right, I think you'd also have to say that abortion should probably be outlawed or at least seriously restricted. Okay, so before getting into this, I want to say a little bit about Marquis' method, how his piece is supposed to work. What's going on here? So the first thing to say about Marquis' method, and I think you guys should notice this in everything we've talked about, is just to leave religion out of it, right? Well, why should we do that? It does seem that people's positions on abortion are often very, very closely tied to their religious belief or lack of it in other cases, right? Well, Marquis will just say, look, if your argument, whether it is for abortion or against abortion, is based on religion, just a lot of people aren't going to accept it. It's just not going to have any hold on them, right? If you have to make use of religious premises, think back to what we said about controversial and non-controversial premises. You should reach for non-controversial premises, premises you think other people might accept, hopefully premises you think they would accept. Religion's just not going to cut it, right? Once you bring religion into it, you're going to almost certainly have controversial premises. So Marquis says, well, whether we're going for an argument for or against abortion or whatever, we need to leave religion out of it because that's going to be controversial. It's not going to have any grasp on anybody who doesn't buy your religious premises, or if you reject religion, anyone who accepts religious premises, just leave it out. Marquis will also say, let's step away from this personhood question. Why? Well, for one thing, a lot of times issues of personhood will get tied up with religion or lack of it, right? Personhood might mean has a soul or whatever. Well, then we bring religion into it. Definitions of personhood will also bring in religious claims in other ways, right? Marquis will also say, look, we've already seen these, personhood debates getting really complicated really quickly. This is maybe not a good way to bring any clarity to the issue to figure out what is the right response. So Marquis said, well, let me focus on a question that's closely related to personhood, but I think is more fundamental and more likely to allow us to make some progress. And that question is, what is it that makes it wrong to kill another human being? You say, well, it's wrong to kill another human being because they're a person. Marquis will say, well, that doesn't give me any explanation. That might be right, might not be, might be right. But I want an explanation. What is it? What features of other human beings are there that makes it wrong to kill them in a way that we don't think it's wrong to kill most other things? So let's focus on that question. Marquis will say, that's a lot more fundamental, that's a lot more important than this personhood question. And he thinks it's a lot more manageable. And so Marquis will say, one thing we should keep in mind here, a good answer to this question should not be ad hoc. Well, what does ad hoc mean? Ad hoc means we only like an answer or a theory or whatever because it gives us the answer we want. You'll sometimes, it means different things in different contexts, but that's what I think he thinks it means here, right? You'll also hear people talk about arguing from a conclusion to premises. Well, that's his suspicion of what a lot of people do in the abortion debate. They want abortion to be legal or illegal or whatever, so they just reach for some premises or a theory that supports that and don't ask themselves, is this theory a good one in and of itself? Marquis will say that gets things exactly wrong. If we're a good way to make progress on the abortion debate, he thinks, is to ask ourselves, well, what makes killing wrong? But in coming up with that account and asking ourselves if it's a good one, we should turn away from the abortion debate, not just for the time being, not think at all about whether it gives us the answer we want there or not. We should just ask, is it a good account in and of itself? Does it work in other respects? That'll make sure it's not ad hoc. Then, if there's other good reasons to buy this account, to think that it's true, then we can turn and ask what it says about the abortion debate. Let's not reach for a theory or reject a theory because it tells us what we want to hear in the abortion debate, or in the case of rejecting it, it tells us what we don't want to hear. Ask if it's a good theory for other reasons first, then we'll turn to the abortion debate or turn back to it. So the basic outline of Marquis' paper, the basic steps in his argument. Give an account of the wrongness of killing human beings. Show what the account is, for A, why he thinks it's a good account. B, compare his account with rival accounts. Is it better than they are? Do they have problems that it doesn't? Now, we've already talked about some of the rival accounts when we talked about personhood, the biological account, the mental abilities account. He talks about those. I'm not going to talk about them too much here. There's a couple other rival accounts that I'll spend more time on. I will go through these as we go through this lecture. The interruption account and the desire account. I'll have more to say about those. Finally, Marquis will say he thinks his account does better than these rivals. Then finally, C, we apply Marquis' account of the wrongness of killing to the abortion question. Once we've already seen he thinks that we have good reasons to accept it and it's better than its competitors, then and only then should we start trying to ask what it says about abortion. Okay. So, Marquis, what makes killing wrong? Killing is wrong because it deprives a being of an especially valuable future. A future like ours, right? Ours in the widest sense, the kind of future that normal adult human beings have. Now look, Marquis will say, he's like, look, this account of ours is a bit vague. It needs to be worked out a bit more. But he'll say it's good enough to talk about the abortion debate. So, killing is wrong because it deprives human beings of a valuable future. That means killing will be wrong when it deprives a being of a valuable future. Is this a good account? Well, I think it is, right? If we're going to talk about what's wrong with killing another human being, we should talk about what it does to the person killed. We shouldn't talk about, he talks about divine commands here. Divine command theory would say, well, killing's wrong because God says not to, right? That's a weird thing to say because it doesn't talk about what killing actually does to the person killed. You know, you might say killing is wrong because it damages the social fabric or it's against the rules of society. Again, that's weird because that doesn't seem to capture the main thing that makes killing wrong. The main thing that makes killing wrong is not what it does to society, it's what it does to the person killed, right? Well, definitely seems that a good part of the wrong of killing, the way it harms the person killed, is it deprives him or her of a future. And that future would be a good thing, right? In most cases. Natural explanation here. This account, unlike the biological account, is not arbitrary. If something has a future enough like ours, if it has a valuable future in the way that human beings have valuable futures, then it is wrong to kill it for exactly the same reasons it's wrong to kill a human being. That's a pretty good reason to think it's wrong to kill something, right? And it wouldn't arbitrarily exclude things, right? 7 armed aliens or intelligent computers or Mr. Data, well, they all have futures enough like ours. Again, I'd like to see Marquis say a little bit more about what it is to have a future like ours. But in all these cases, they seem to have a future enough like ours that it would be wrong to kill them, and wrong for exactly the same reason as it would be to kill one of us. That all seems a very good account of killing. Marquis' account also does not face the fatal counterexample, or the seemingly fatal counterexample that you had with this mental abilities account of personhood, right? Marquis doesn't want to talk about personhood, but the mental abilities and biological account both try to give accounts not just of personhood, but what makes killing wrong. And you remember mental abilities accounts seem to have this problem of, say, well, children don't have these mental abilities, at least very young ones, at least infants don't. So seems like they're not persons, and if persons are what matter, then it seems like it's okay to kill them. That is a huge problem, right? Marquis will say, well, think about my approach. Is an infant a person? I don't know. I don't care. Well, I'm not sure he doesn't care, but, not too important for these purposes. Whether or not the infant is a person, it has, in pretty much all cases, a future like ours. Killing it deprives it of that future. That's why killing is wrong. Not only does Marquis have a good account of why killing an infant's wrong, not only does he avoid this really bad counterexample that the mental abilities account runs into, he can give a very natural, a very plausible, a very good account of why it would be wrong to kill an infant. It's wrong for the same reason it's wrong to kill you or me, because it deprives the infant of a valuable future. In some sense, it might be even more wrong because you deprive it of more of a future than you would if you killed somebody who's much older, right? All right, so we've already seen that Marquis can claim 2 big advantages for his account over the personhood accounts that we've looked at. But there are 2 rival accounts that we haven't looked at yet. These accounts don't talk about personhood, they talk about other things. So the desire account is an account of what makes killing wrong. And the desire account says, well, killing is wrong because it thwarts the desire that people have to live. You and I and everybody else, or at least most everybody else, wants to live. It would be wrong to interfere with us, with our desire to live without a really good reason. Killing interferes with our desire to live, so killing is wrong. Another account, the so-called discontinuation account. Killing is wrong because it interrupts experience. You and I are currently having experience. Killing would break that off, so it would be bad, right? Now, both of these are accounts that have been offered in the context of the abortion debate. Marquis, though, will say, let's not look at what they say about abortion. Let's just ask ourselves, are they good accounts in and of themselves? Marquis will say they're not. The desire account is especially bad. The desire account really runs face first into some obvious counterexamples. So think about it this way. If what's wrong about killing is that it thwarts or gets in the way of somebody's desire to live, then it seems like you'd have to say that if someone doesn't want to live, it's perfectly okay to kill them. Well, you'd have to say a bit about what it is to want to live. If you're asleep or in a coma, you currently don't want anything. So it seems like this account would say, well, you can just kill people who are asleep or in a coma, right? Now, even if that's not the case, this desire account pretty clearly is going to say, well, think about someone who is deeply depressed, but a very temporary depression, right? They're depressed now, but we have very good reason to think they'll come out of it. But you know what? They're depressed right now. They currently have no desire to live. We all think, or at least I hope we do, that it would be wrong to kill somebody who's depressed in this way. They don't currently have a desire to live. It's still wrong to kill them. If what made killing wrong was that it got in the way of this desire to live, you'd have to say it's perfectly okay to kill these people. That's a silly result. That looks like a counterexample. Marquis talks about this desire account because it is an account some people have offered in the context of the abortion debate. The idea being, well, the fetus doesn't have a desire to live, so it's okay to kill it. Marquis, once again, saying, look, this is not a good account. If you think about it more generally, it just doesn't work. The only reason anyone would ever pick this desire account is because it gives them an answer they want in the context of the abortion debate. Independent of giving the, quote, right answer about abortion, this account has no independent plausibility. What's more, it runs into some really bad counterexamples, so there's plenty of reasons to reject it. Discontinuation account, also an account that has been offered in the context of the abortion debate. Again, it's supposed to be a pro-choice argument. The argument is, well, the fetus hasn't yet started to have experience. If it's the case that interrupting experience is what makes killing wrong, then clearly abortion not wrong. But Marquis will say, well, obviously the interruption account is not a good one, or the discontinuation account. Why not? For one thing, interrupting an experience is not always bad. If someone is in horrible, horrible pain, then interrupting that experience of horrible pain would not be a bad thing. Marquis, in fact, I think he tends to lean towards supporting physician-assisted suicide. Marquis would say, if someone's currently in horrible, horrible pain, and the rest of their very short life is going to be in very horrible pain, then I think Marquis would say interrupting that experience would be a very good thing, and we should do it, right? Marquis, I think, leans towards saying killing is not wrong in those circumstances. interrupting experience only bad when that experience itself is good or valuable. And Marquis will say, well, if that's true, why is it wrong to interrupt our experience? Well, if it's because the future experience is valuable, you're already reaching back to the account I've already given you. You're already just saying, well, it's wrong to interrupt an experience when the future experience will be good. Well, look, folks, Marquis will say. Then you're already just reaching for my account, which says, well, what makes killing bad? It's depriving something of a future like ours. This discontinuation account already needs to reach for something like the account of the wrongness of killing I've already given you. It doesn't seem like it can stand on its own. So the valuable future account can stand on its own. It also explains why interrupting experience is bad. So it does more work than this discontinuation account. It does the work it's supposed to do, so it seems like it's better. And once you have this, valuable future account of the wrongness of killing, tacking on this interruption account saying, well, experience must have already started, again, that seems ad hoc. It seems like you're just tacking that on to get the result you want. That doesn't seem like it has any independent motivation or plausibility.